Yeah, okay. You're recording? Yeah. Hey, Erev Tov, everyone. First of all, you all have regards from President. I don't mean Trump. I mean the President of the Kehillah. Sorry, I'm not talking about the election. I don't have a single word to say about it. But I saw Jeremy today, and he's recovering. He's in good spirits. He is itching to come back. It's probably still going to be some time, but he's recovering well, and he's on the mend, and he sends his regards to everybody. Okay, so as the Gabayim have already told us, we at Maariv are going to change from saying V'tein bracha to V'tein talu matali bracha. And as you already know, we've already started saying Mashiva Ruach U'Merid HaGeshem, but now we change to saying V'tein talu matar as well. So interesting, some interesting scenarios that come up, interesting shaylas come up relating to these changes in Tefillah. So let's talk about it a little bit now, because it's very relevant. Okay, obviously, so first of all, the first change, there are two places in our Tefillah where we mention Geshem, right? We have in the second bracha, Shemona Esrei, we say Mashiva Ruach Min HaGeshem. In Eretz Yisrael, the prevalent custom is that when we don't say Mashiva Ruach, right, in the summer, we say Morid Hatal, and we'll see that has certain distinct halachic advantages as well, if somebody forgets or something like that. But, and then later on, in the bracha of Barech Aleinu, we say V'tein talu matar. So the Gemara in Ta'anit, really the Mishnah, in Masechet Ta'anit, the first few Mishnayot of the Masechet deal with this change and deal with when we change. When we say one is called, it begins, the Masechet starts off, the Masechet Ta'anit, it says, Me'ematay maskrin gvurot kshamim. We have two different things. Gvurot kshamim, or what's also called the Haskarat kshamim, we mention rain, but we don't ask for rain. That is in the second bracha of Shemona Esrei. So there's a machloket Tanaim. Rabbi Eliezer omer miyom tov rishon shel chag. Chag in the Mishnah always relates to Chag HaSukkot. So Rabbi Eliezer says we start saying, already from the first day of Sukkot, we start mentioning rain. Rabbi Yoshua says from the last day, and that is our minhag. We follow Rabbi Yoshua in this case. But so there's a machloket between them. They say, Amar Rabbi Yoshua, ho'il ve'en gshamim ela siman klala b'chag lama maskir. Right, and the fact is, we paskin halacha like Rabbi Yoshua, yeah, that we start mentioning rain at the end of Sukkot, not at the beginning of Sukkot. And Rabbi Yoshua says to Rabbi Eliezer, your opinion makes no sense, because we know that if it rains on Sukkot, certainly if it rains on the first night of Sukkot, that is a siman klala, that is a sign of curse. So why would we ask for rain at the beginning of Sukkot when we don't want it to rain until Sukkot is over? That's the question. He says, it rains on Chag, it's a siman klala. Lama maskir. So why should you mention it? So what does Rabbi Eliezer want? He says, you should ask for it. I said, maskir. I just said you mentioned, right? Mashiva Ruach from the whole year. Right? What does it matter? In any event, he says, says Rabbi Yisrael, if that's the case, so clearly it's not quite the same as Bakashat Kshamim, but there's a certain element, yeah, this is leading into the request, so we should only say it, and that is what Rabbi Yisrael says, we only say Mashiva Ruach Min HaGeshem, okay? But we only say that at the time when it's appropriate, when it's the season when we expect the rain to fall, when we want the rain, and that is only from Shmini Atzeret when we say Tfilat Geshem. Okay, if that's the case, that obviously begs the question. So we started saying when Shmini Atzeret we said Mashiva Ruach U'Merid HaGeshem, and until now it said V'tein bracha over there. Now it says V'tein talu. Only now, 15 days later, do we start asking for rain? So why the gap? Why the difference? In a minute, we'll talk about Chutz La'aretz. It gets even more complicated. But why is there a gap? So the first Mishnah says, that's when we mention Haskarat Kshamim, Gvurat Kshamim. The second Mishnah Masechet Ta'anit, says, Ein shoalin et ha-kshamim, ela samuch le-kshamim. Okay, logical statement. You only asked for the rain at the time when you wanted to rain. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, okay, gets into a discussion here with the Shachrit and Musaf, etc. But what is it? When is this season of rain? When do we start asking? So the next Mishnah says, Bishlosha, a few different opinions. There's an opinion that says, Bishlosha b'mal Cheshvan sholin kshamim, the third of Cheshvan. Rabban Gamliel Omer b'shiv'a bo. That is our minhag. That is our practice. Tonight is the 7th of Cheshvan, and that is why we begin asking for rain. 15 yom achar hachag. 15 days after Sukkot, Kadei Shagia Acharon Shebisrael Nahar Prat. Right after everybody is coming back from the Aliyah LaRegel, right? There were no flights in those days, just like there are no flights at the moment, right? Everybody's walking and everybody's going back, and we don't want it to rain on the Ovrei Drachim. I think on Yom Kippur we spoke about the concept of the Ovrei Drachim, right? The Kohen Gadol, when he says his tefillah in the Kodesh Kodashim, those remember we spoke about it. One of the things he says, again, the tefillah, the Kohen Gadol, and the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur, what does he ask for? Shloi kansu lefanecha tefillat Ovrei Drachim. That those people who are on the way, those wayfarers on the journey, that their tefillah shouldn't be accepted. We explain, the concept is somebody's on the way, it's going to start raining, what are you going to daven? You're going to daven really, really hard that it doesn't rain, because you don't want to get wet, you don't want to get soaked, you don't want all your things to get ruined. And ad kedei kach, that you have the Kohen Gadol in the Kodesh Kodashim asking that tefillah should not be accepted, because if it's the time the world needs it, and it's time we need the rain, so then we want it to come. We don't want certain people, we're very sorry that you'll get wet. So therefore we wait till everybody's gotten back, and then they've gone back from Aliyah LaRegel, they won't get wet, and then we can start asking for rain. Okay. So those are the two changes that we make. 15 days ago, we started saying Mashiva Ruach Min HaGeshem, and now tonight we'll begin saying V'dain Talum Atali Bracha. Okay, what happens if a person makes a mistake? What happens if a person forgot, or if a person can't remember what they said? I'm sure that's never happened to anybody here. You know, it just happens. I'm told that a person's davening by habit, by rote. You know, you're going, before you know it, you're in the 10th bracha, you're in the 13th bracha, you're in the last bracha of the Shmoneh Esrei, and you say, oh, did I say Mashiva Ruach? Did I say V'tein Talum Atara? You can't remember. So what do you do? So when it comes to Mashiva Ruach U'Min HaGeshem, for us it's relatively straightforward, because again the starting point is, if you say the wrong thing, you have to go back. That's our default position. Because if you ask for rain at a time when you should not ask for rain, so it's a klala, we don't want it. And if you forget to ask for rain at a time when you do need to ask for rain, that's also a problem. So the starting point would be that we would have to go back. However, when it comes to Mashiva Ruach, it's not so simple, for the following reason. The Shulchan Aruch says like this. Let's look at the opposite case first. So Imamar Morid HaGeshem B'mot HaChama, right? So in the summer, when you are not meant to say, when we just say Morid HaTal, right? And if a person said Morid HaGeshem by accident, Machzirin oto v'echzor l'rosh habracha, then you have to go back and you have to say it. You have to say it again. Okay. But now in our circumstance, B'mot HaGeshamim. Again, at the moment, I'm just talking about Kforot Kshamim. We'll get to Bakashat Kshamim in a moment. B'mot HaGeshamim in the winter. Im lo amar Morid HaGeshem. You meant to say Mashiva Ruach U'Min HaGeshem, and you did not say it, you forgot. He said Machzirin oto. You would say you would go back and you would repeat. However, at the Shulchan Aruch, Hanei milei shelo izkir tal. That is if you did not mention tal. So if you're in Chutz La'aretz, according to Nusach Ashkenaz, and you were saying you did not say Morid HaTal, you would then have to go back and you'd have to repeat. However, so according to our practice, where we do say Morid HaTal anyway, so the second bracha of Shmoneh Esrei, essentially, if you forgot what you said at this time of year, you aren't sure if you said Morid HaTal, you said Mashiva Ruach U'Min HaGeshem. You were meant to say Mashiva Ruach U'Min HaGeshem, but we assume that if you didn't say that, you said Morid HaTal, and therefore you don't need to go back. You don't need to go back. You don't need to repeat anything. Okay. What about when we get to V'tein bracha, v'tein talum atali bracha? So here, it's different. Here we say we need to ask v'tein talum atali bracha. So if a person didn't say it, a person just said v'tein bracha, they would have to go back. They'd have to go back and repeat the bracha. However, there is an eitzah, which is, it depends when you forgot, when you remember. If you remember before you have said Shema, before the bracha, Shema Koleinu, so then in Shema Koleinu, there's a part where we can add in whatever tefillah we want, and you've asked for it, and that's okay. You don't need to go back and repeat your Shema Esrei. If you only remember after you've said Shema Koleinu, so then you would have to go back to the bracha of Barech Aleinu, and you would say it again. If you only remember once you finish Shema Esrei, so you have to go back. You would have to go back and repeat. Okay, but that's in terms of that. Now, what happens if a person cannot remember? If they said, I get to Shema Koleinu, so. And if we're in that now talking about you get to Shema Koleinu, and that point I can't remember. Okay, so I can add it in Shema Koleinu. There's no problem. Let's say I'm past it. Let's say I'm at the end of Shmoneh Esrei. I'm towards the end. I cannot remember. Did I say v'tein bracha or did I say v'tein talum atali bracha? Right. So what do we do? So here we say that we assume that we are creatures of habit. And it takes 30 days to build a habit, so they say. So therefore, we assume whatever you've been doing for the last 30 days, that is the chazakah. So, which means that over the course of the next month, if you can't remember if you said v'tein bracha or v'tein talu matali bracha, we assume you said v'tein bracha, not v'tein talu matali bracha, because you haven't changed. After 30 days, then we assume whatever you've been saying the last 30 days, if you can't remember, we assume that's what you've been doing. So the Maharam Rothenburg had a very, very interesting suggestion here. He said, and again, according to the Minhag Ashkenaz, where he would not have said Murid Hatal, he says this by Mashiv Aruach from Geshem. He says that on Shmini Atzeret, the recommendation is you should say 90 times, okay? Say the first sentence of the bracha, right? And you say Mashiv Aruach from Geshem. And therefore we say, you've already said it 90 times. You've said it the amount of times you would have said within 30 days, and therefore you've created a new habit, and therefore you don't have to. I saw actually Rav Shlomo Zalman Neubach says that there was a minhag in Yerushalayim, that there was a certain song that they would sing on Simchat Torah where they would say Vashiv Aruach U'Min HaGeshem, I'd say the whole thing, and they would sing it 90 times, so that everybody would you could hold this. Huh? Still done. It's still done. Okay, it's not done. Okay, it's not done here, but okay, next year you can teach us the song. So in any event, but then the question is that the poskim ask all sorts of questions over here, because in one place we find that it says 30 days. In another place it says, the Maharam Rag, he says 90 times. Right? And if you do the math very, very quickly, where do you get to 90? Because 30 days, 30 times 3 is 90 times. But if we're talking about Mashiv Aruach U'Merid HaGeshem, so that's something you say in every single Shemona Esrei. So on Shabbat, you say it more. On Shabbat, you're going to say it 4 times. So if you want to work out how many times you say it in 30 days, it's actually more than 90. Right? The Khatam Sofer says you should say it 101 times. That's On the other hand, when we come to V'tein Bracha, right, maybe based on this idea of the Maharam, and the Mishnah Berurah brings it, and the Poskim say that you should say V'tein Bracha 90 times, maybe when we're now changing to V'tein Talu Matali Bracha, maybe we should all, after davening tonight, we should all stand here and say V'tein Talu Matali Bracha 90 times. Okay, but what's the problem? If you think about 30 days, in this case, 30 days includes Shabbat. On Shabbat, you don't say V'tein Talu Matali Bracha at all. So within 30 days, you say it less than 90 times. So the question is, are we going by 30 days? Or are we going by the number of times that you say it? Right? So there's a big machloket over here as to whether, and it comes out that there's a chumrah and a kula, depending on which bracha we're saying. At the end of the day, the Mishnah Berurah says that we go by after 30 days, we would assume that it is after 30 days. We're not going to go and make a person. Then we have at least a safek. We're not going to make a person go back and say it again. There is one more point I wanted to mention, but I've run out of time. But I'll just leave you with a question, which is very interesting. We didn't get to Chutz La'aretz, but in Chutz La'aretz they don't start saying V'tein Talu Matali Bracha tonight. They say it there 60 days from the beginning of the Tkufa. We have 4 Tkufot of the year, which is based on the solar year. And after 60 days, so it works out the 5th and the 6th of December, and that is the day when they start saying Chutz La'aretz. So that's based on the fact that in Bavel it had the 2 great rivers, and they didn't need as much rain, and only later on they could start saying it. So we judge all of Chutz La'aretz like Bavel. What happens? And we have cases like this comes up all the time. People have asked me, you live in Eretz Yisrael, and you're traveling to Chutz La'aretz in the period, let's say you caught a flight, right? In the period between Zayin Cheshvan and the 5th of December, what do? Do you say the bracha the way you would say it in Eretz Yisrael, or do you say the bracha the way you would say it in Chutz La'aretz? Okay, so we don't have time to talk about the answer, so you have to get suspense.